Hello, good afternoon, or good morning, or good night, wherever you are in the world, or wherever time you're watching this. We're going to be continuing in going through Tomer Devorah. Right now, we're going into chapter 2, and we're just going to jump right into it. Um, Chapter 2. Additionally, for a person to emulate his creator according to the essence of the attribute of Keter, which is like the crown, this is the highest sphere. He must possess several main functions, which are the main conduct of this attribute. The first, and most encompassing, is the trait of humility, of anava. It is contingent on the attribute of Keter, for it is the most sublime of all the attributes. Nevertheless, it does not exalt itself or hold itself in esteem. On the contrary, it always descends, gazing downwards. There are two reasons for this. One reason is that it is ashamed to gaze at its cause. Instead, he from whom Keser emanates watches over it at all times in order to benefit it, while it gazes at those below. Similarly, a man should be ashamed to gaze upward in order to hold himself aloof. Rather, he should always lower his gaze and minimize his self-worth as much as possible. This quality is contingent mainly on the head, for a person holds himself aloof by raising his head upwards, whereas a humble person lowers his head. Secondly, behold, there is none so tolerant and humble as our God in his attribute of Keter. For his mercy is absolute, and no flaw, transgression, or strict judgment enters his sphere. Nor can any other trait prevent him from watching over man and bestowing bounty upon man constantly. So too, man should conduct himself in this way. No factor in the world should prevent him from benefiting others, and no transgressions or misdeeds of unworthy people should prevent him from benefiting at every available opportunity all those in need. And just as God sits and nourishes all creatures, from the horns of Re'emim, the largest creature, to the eggs of lice, the smallest creature, not disdaining any of them. For if he disdained any creature because of its insignificance, it could not exist for even a moment. Rather, he watches over them and grants mercy to all. So too, man should benefit all, not disdaining any creature. Even the lowliest beings should be very important in his eyes. He should show concern for them and benefit all who require his benefit. This attribute, generally, is contingent on the attribute of Keter, the essence of the supernal head. The second, we just said the second. Oh, so the first was all about having this level of humility and bestowing good from above to below. But if you think that you're so great that you can't do that, then you're obviously not going to be able to benefit those below because you think that you're too too good for it, so to speak. Okay, so now we're going into another attribute of Keter. So this is the second thing. One's thoughts should emulate the thought process of Keter, just as the Chokhmah of Keter, which is like the wisdom or understanding, it's hard to translate, but just as the Chokhmah of Keter never stops thinking good thoughts and it allows no evil to enter in it because it is absolute compassion, with no severity or harshness found there at all. So too, a person's thoughts should always be void of anything unseemly. And just as it is the essence of Chokhmah, of the primal Torah, where all the secrets of Torah are contained, so too one should not pay attention to anything other than the thoughts of Torah, or to meditate on the greatness of God and His beneficial acts, or to contemplate how to benefit others, or other similar good positive thoughts. As a rule, no foreign or irrelevant thoughts should enter one's mind. Such was the elevated level of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, and his comments. And when Rabbi Yossi's thoughts were strayed a little from the Torah, note how Rabbi Shimon rebuked him, as is related in the Zohar on Parshas Vayakhel, on page 217b in the Zohar. The third connection, the third thing we're going to emulate this attribute of Keter is one's forehead, his metzach, should not contain any harshness. Rather, one should constantly emulate this supernal metzach of willingness and appease all. Even when he finds people angry at one another, he should appease and pacify them with his goodwill, with a supernal metzach of willingness, constantly placate, uh, placates strict judgment and rectifies them. He too should appease those intense people who intensify their anger. He should guide them with goodwill and complement this with his great wisdom to nullify their anger, lest it overstep its boundaries and cause damage, God forbid. One should follow the example of the divine will, which derives from the wondrous Chokhmah found in the Metzach of Atik, whence all strict judgments are appeased. This quality derives from being constantly pleasant towards people, for if his traits are in any aspect harsh towards others, they will not be placated by him. I mean, I think they won't be like received or established. I'm not really sure what placated means, but placated, because they will not be placated if he's going to be harsh towards those, towards others. This is the meaning of the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, in Ethics of Our Fathers, in chapter 3, Mishnah 13. It says there, anyone who the spirit of people is pleased with him, the spirit of the omnipresent is also pleased with him. The fourth thing for emulating this level of Keter, one's ears should always turn to hear good, while false or despicable reports should not enter them at all. Just as in the essence of supernal listening, any cry for strict judgment or any blemish of evil gossip does not enter there. So too, one should not listen to anything other than good or of practical use. To other things which intensify anger, he should not listen at all. And just as the words and speech of the serpent have no entry above, so too no despicable thing should have any entry in him, into one's ears. This is the meaning of the phrase, and it says in Shmos, chapter 23, verse 1, you shall not accept a false report. How much more so does this apply to other despicable things, which should not enter one's ears at all, and he should only be listening to good things. The fifth way of uh, emulating this level of Keter, one's eyes should not gaze at all at anything despicable. Rather, they should always be open to watch over unfortunates and have as much mercy on them as possible. And when he sees the suffering of the poor, he should not close his eyes at all. Rather, he should give as much thought to their predicament as possible, arousing the mercy of both heaven and man upon them. He should distance himself from noticing evil, just like the supernal eye, which is open and forever sees only good. The sixth way of emulating Keter, regarding the nose. A breath of wrath should never be found in it. Rather, it should constantly contain the breath of life, goodwill, and patience, even toward those who are unworthy. One should always want to fulfill the desire of others, to satisfy every request, and to revive the broken-spirited. He should always breathe forth from his nose forgiveness of iniquity and pardon of transgression. He should not be angry with those who offend him. Rather, he should constantly be willing to be appeased, and he should be desirous of kindness, pleasing everyone. The seventh way of emulating Keter, seventh step, seventh way, these are all connected. The seventh way, step of emulating Keter, one's face should always shine, and he should receive all people with a cheerful countenance. But regarding the supernal Keser, it says, in Mishle, in Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 15, in the light of the king's countenance is life. Just as no flush of anger or strict judgment enters there at all, so too the light of his countenance should be unchanging, and all who look into his face should find nothing but joy and cheerfulness. No factor should distract him from this at all. The seventh step of emulating Keter, the eighth step of emulating Keter, one's mouth should express nothing but good, and the content of his words should be Torah and constant expression of goodwill. No despicable words, curses, rage, anger, or frivolous talk should escape his mouth. Rather, it should resemble the supernal mouth, which is never sealed and never refrains from speaking good at all times. Therefore, one must not silence himself from speaking well of everyone, expressing good words and blessings constantly. These, then, are 8 good qualities, all of which come under the banner of humility. They all correspond above to the supernal limbs of Keter. Thus, when a person desires to draw near to the supernal worlds and emulate God in order to open his sources to those below, he must be fully perfected in that which was discussed in these 2 chapters. I'm just going to go through the 8 again. It seems like these are highly important, and I think it's good. It's always good to review. The first one, we talked about humility and being tolerant and humble. The second one was one's thoughts. Third one is one's forehead. The fourth one is one's ears. Fifth one is one's eyes. Sixth is the nose. Seventh is the face, the countenance. And the eighth one is one's mouth. We're going to continue on now in this chapter. Amazing. However, we know that it is not always possible to conduct oneself in accordance with these qualities, since there are other qualities one must master, which are from the lower strict judgments, as we will explain with God's help. Nevertheless, on certain days, these strict judgments are inactive, and man does not need to make use of them, for the supernal attribute of Keter reigns, or because these are times that the supernal attribute of Keter is sought. At these times, one must use all the qualities we have mentioned above. But other attributes pertaining to strict judgment, even though they are required in divine service at the proper time, should not be exercised in these times, for the light of Keter nullifies them. For example, one should not make use of these harsh attributes on Shabbos, when the world is perfected with the essence of delight, and therefore there is no judgment on Shabbos. On this day, one should utilize all of these qualities mentioned above in order to open the heavenly sources of blessing. For if one concentrates on the lights of Keter in his prayers, yet he behaves contrary to them with his actions, how can he open the sources of Keser while he literally repels them with his deeds. It is not all the is it not all the more so that if Keter does not reside when the supernal Sephiros, these divine attributes and character traits, um, is it not so? Is it not all the more so that if Keter does not reside when the supernal Sephiros intensify sacred strict judgment and sacred anger, then Keser and its light will surely not rest upon a person who allows the external anger to prevail, even though he does so for the sake of heaven. This is particularly true since he intends to arouse it, this external anger, over the supernal attributes. And then they will then say, how much audacity does he have? The light of Keser is not revealed in us because of our judgments that are holy and pure, that this person desires to reveal it when he is filled with anger and despicable, superficial actions. Thus, on festivals, Shabbos, and Yom Kippur, and at times of prayer and during times of Torah study, which are not times of strict judgment, but rather, on the contrary, they are times when the supernal will is revealed, man should direct his mind to all these qualities. At other times, he may utilize the remaining attributes in his divine service, but not despicable ones. For whenever they are in control, it is to man's advantage, as will be explained. Oh, it is to man's oh, sorry. I'm going to restart that sentence. At other times, he may utilize the remaining attributes in his divine service, but not despicable ones. For whenever they are in control, the despicable ones, is to man's disadvantage, as will be explained. Then, when he utilizes these qualities of Keser, he will be prepared and assured that the heavenly sources of blessing will open. Therefore, every person must accustom himself with these qualities little by little. The main quality he should grasp, the key to them all, is humility, this anava, for it is the highest of them all and the foremost aspect of Keser, with all the other aspects included in it. Now, the primary aspect of humility is that one should not find himself worthy at all. Rather, he should consider himself like nothing. As Moshe Rabbeinu, the humble one, said in Shemos chapter 16, verse 7, what are we worth that you should complain against us? To the extent that he deems himself in his own eyes as the lowliest of all creatures, exceedingly shameful and loathsome. When a person constantly strives to acquire this quality of humility, all the other qualities of Keser will be drawn after it. For the primary quality of Keser is to view itself as nothing before the one from whom it emanates. Likewise, a person should consider himself nothing at all, thinking that his absence would much be better than his existence. Consequently, he will act towards those who despise him as if they are correct, and he is the despicable one who is at fault. This will be a means of acquiring all of the other good qualities we've mentioned previously. Now, the Machaber, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, it expands on these and gives some remedy so he can develop himself in these ways. I have found a remedy whereby a person can accustom himself to these things little by little, possibly curing himself of the disease of haughtiness and allowing himself to enter the gates of humility. This is a balm which is composed of 3 potions. Interesting. Um, Here are the 3. The first one, first of the part of this remedy, meaning all 3 are necessary, I believe. If he's saying that it's composed of these 3, then you have to have all 3 in order to have the remedy. You can't just have one or two of them. You have to have all three of them. So the first one should accustom himself to flee as far as possible from honor. For if he accustoms himself to be honored by other people, he will acquire the habit of haughtiness, and by nature he will always desire this. Then, only with great difficulty will he be able to be healed. Distancing yourself from honor is the first one. The second one should accustom his mind to see his shamefulness, his shameful side, saying to himself, although other people don't know of my lack of worth, what of it? Aren't I aware of myself that I am shameful in such a way, whether in lack of knowledge, or the weakness of my abilities, or in my lowliness, by the way I excrete the food I eat, and so on, until he becomes shameful and despicable in his own eyes. The third way of curing haughtiness, or the third part of curing haughtiness, one should constantly contemplate his sin and desire purification, rebuke and suffering, and he should ask himself, which type of suffering is the best in this world, which will not distract me from divine service? Surely there is none better than these. Here are these three ways: to be scorned, to be shamed, and to be cursed. For these will not deprive him of his power and strength through illness, nor will they will deprive him of his food and clothing, or they will not deprive him of his life, or the lives of his children through death. Being so, a person should actually desire these forms of suffering and say to himself, why should I fast and torment myself with sackcloths and lashes, which weaken my power and ability to serve God, and do this to myself with my own hands? It is far better for me to be afflicted with being shamed and scorned by other people, which do not remove my power or weaken me. Thus, when insults are meted out to him, he will rejoice in them, and contrary to the typical reaction, he will actually be desirous of them. From these three potions, one should make a balm for his heart, and he should train himself with this approach all his days to acquire this level of humility, which is the uh, greater, the part of Keter. Um, Continuing in the Sefer, I have found another excellent potion, although this potion alone is not as effective only when it is done in addition to the aforementioned balm of what we just said, the three we just said about acquiring humility. Here's another one. So this is that one should accustom himself to two things. The first is to respect all creatures after recognizing in them the superiority of the Creator, who formed man with his wisdom, and that all creatures contain in them the wisdom of the Creator. He himself should realize that they, all the creatures, are greatly precious, since he who fashioned all things, the wise and supernal above all, has involved himself with creating them. And if one despises them, God forbid, it affects the honor of their Creator. This is comparable to a wise craftsman who makes a vessel with great wisdom, and when he displays his work to people, one of them begins to disgrace and despise it. How angry will a craftsman be, since by despising the work of his hands one is despising his very wisdom? So too the Holy One, blessed be he, is grieved if one despises any of his creatures. This is the meaning of the verse that is written in Tehillim in Psalms 104, verse 24. How great are your works, Hashem! He, King David, did not say how magnificent, he said ma gadlu, but rather how great, ma rabbu, suggesting great importance. As in the phrase Rav Beso, it says in Megillas Esther, that we read on Purim in chapter 1, verse 8, meaning the very important people of the house. And the verse continues. The verse continues from Tehillim, from Psalms. You have made them all with wisdom. Thus, since your wisdom, God's wisdom, was involved in creating them, Your works are great and magnificent, and it is proper for man to perceive wisdom in them and not to despise them. The second way of this second balm, the second remedy, acquiring this level of humility, one should accustom himself to love his fellow men in his heart, even the wicked, as if they were his brothers. Moreover, he should pursue this quality until love for all people is fixed in his heart. He should even love the wicked in his heart, saying, I only wish they were righteous, returning in repentance, so that all of them would be great men desired by the Omnipresent. As Moshe Rabbeinu, the faithful lover of all Bnei Israel, of all the children of Israel, said, he says in Bamidbar, in chapter 11, verse 49, he said there, Moshe says there, if only all the people of God were prophets. And how should he love them? By recalling in his thoughts the good qualities that are present in them, concealing their flaws and refusing to see their defects. Rather, he should look only for the good qualities in them. He should say in his heart, if this poor, loathsome fellow were very rich, how much would I delight in his company, as I delight in the company of so and so? If he were dressed in handsome garments like so and so, there would be no difference between them. If so, why should he lack honor in my eyes, being that in God's eyes he is more important than me, since he is plagued and crushed with poverty and suffering, and therefore he's being cleansed of sin? Why then should I hate he whom the Holy One, blessed be he, loves? In this way, his heart will turn toward the positive aspect of people, and he will accustom himself to ponder all the good qualities that we have mentioned. This concludes chapter 2 of Tomer Devorah. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or any comments or suggestions, please leave a comment below in the video. Thank you so much and have a great day. And in the merit of this learning, we should see the opinion based on Mikdash Lishi and the coming of Mashiach Ben Hiro Yaminu. Kol Tov.